Today we'll be learning how to replace and tune the heads on your drums, here on the Percussion Discussion. Now the best place to start when you're putting a new head on your drum is to actually clean up your bearing edge. All this does is ensure that there's no debris between the drum and your head. Moving the drum over, we can go ahead and pick up our head and put it on top. Just sit it on in there. I always like to line up my label with my my snare lever. Get that on there, and then we can grab our rim along with the lugs, and we'll sit our rim down to where the lugs line up with the holes in the side of the drum. Should just sit flushly right on top of the head. All right. First step is to hand tighten our lugs just so they're flush with the rim around the drum. And with that completed, we can go ahead and tune up the drum. Now, with a drum, there's a pattern that you go around the lugs in that ensures that the head is tightened evenly, and it just prevents damage from the head or any bending from your rim. I am using an 8-leg drum. Now, the pattern will change slightly if you're using a 6-leg or a 10-leg, but there are all kinds of diagrams online that you can go to figure this out, and I'll put a little diagram up here in the corner for an 8-leg drum. I always like to start at the lug that's next to my snare lever, and so we'll count this as 1, and I'll give it a half turn. We'll go across the drum to 2, and then we'll come to the center of those two to the side, and that'll be 3. Come across your drum, that'll be 4, and then we'll go to your corner, that'll be 5. Come across the drum, that's 6. Come to your other corner, that's 7, and then across the drum, and that's 8. Now on an 8-leg drum, your 8 will end right next to your first leg. So now that I've done a half turn on each of those legs, I'll continue doing this a couple times until I get the head up to a pitch that I like, and then we can get into some fine tuning. That gets it to a note that I like to have on my drum set. However, tuning is really a personal preference. You can just do what sounds best on your drum set, or if you're tuning for a particular piece, you just tune to the key that that piece is in. And you'll also have to tune up your toms to match, but that's an entire other process. So to begin our fine tuning, we're going to want to go around our drum and just get a hit right next to our lugs so we can get a pitch around each of the lugs, and I'll find which lug sounds about in the middle. So it's lug 8 right here. Now our goal is to get all of the lugs to sound about the same going around the drum. And what this is going to do is get our head in tune with itself, and that'll give us a clean sound when we play. Now, before we start doing our fine tuning, you want to make sure that the bottom head is muted so that when you're tapping next to the lugs, you're actually only getting the sound from the top head, not your bottom head. So I've chosen this one, and I'll just compare these two lugs here, and this one's slightly higher. Take that down, still a bit higher. I might take this one up just to match it. That's pretty good for now, so we'll just move on. Oop, a bit low. And the process just continues all the way around the drum. Alright, so I've got all the lugs sounding about the same, so I should have a drum that's in tune with itself. Perfect. Now you can hear a lot of ringing and probably some overtones in that sound. That's because the head I've chosen doesn't have a ring underneath it that can get rid of those. Anything like maybe a muted ring that you can place on top of your drum, or even a moon gel, this can get rid of those overtones and all that ringing in your drum, and you'll probably have a lot cleaner of a sound when you're playing, and especially when you're recording. So there we go. A couple tips from when you're changing out your head. When you're taking off your original head, make sure you're still going in that pattern around your rim. There's a lot of tension in that rim and in those lugs, and if you don't do that, you may end up bending your rim, which would be very problematic down the road. Secondly, you can add some petroleum jelly to your lugs, and what this will do is make it a lot easier to get them in, probably make them a lot smoother, and should also help them hold their tension over time. And then thirdly, but certainly not least, you can put your drum on a soft surface. I actually highly recommend this. That way your surface is not damaging any of the hardware on your drum. You keep everything looking nice. And also your hardware is metal, so you want to keep it from damaging whatever surface you're working on. So I hope that helps. Thank you for joining me here on the Percussion Discussion. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comments section. And if you want to see more content related to percussion, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I'll have more coming out soon. Take care. Goodbye.